Welcome to the Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Are you planning to sell your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Then you already know it's not just about finding a buyer, it's about actually protecting what you've actually built. That's where our sponsor, Adam Benedict, comes in. They're one of the leading premier M&A legal firms trusted by founders to simplify complex exits, protect value, and deliver results. Now, if you want a smart, smoother, and strategic exit, visit adambenedict.co.uk.
America leads the world in medicine development. It matters. We get new medicines first, nearly 3 years faster. 5 million Americans go to work because we make medicines here at home. And not relying on other countries keeps us safe. But China is racing to overtake us. Will we let them, or will we choose to stay ahead? When America leads, America cures. Let's tell Washington to keep us in the lead.
Learn how at americacures.com. Paid for by pharma.
Are you looking to scale your business, but maybe there is a disconnect between what you actually want to achieve and maybe your mindset? Maybe there is a skill set or a mindset shift that needs to happen. Well, today's episode, I want to share with you the 10 common pitfalls that you need to avoid when it comes to scaling your business. Let's get straight in. So welcome to this week's podcast on the Business Strategist with myself, Adam Strong. And I want to get straight into today because I feel like I've had quite a few conversations over the last couple of weeks with a lot of potential clients, and they have the aspirations to want to scale. Now, there is a real difference between wanting to scale and growing the business, right? And so what I'm going to share with you guys is really hopefully going to give you a bit of an eye-opener when it comes to scaling a business. I want to share with my personal experiences, some stories, but also some methodologies about how you can overcome and get over the common pitfalls when it comes to scaling the business. So the first one is limited revenue streams. So when it comes to scaling a business, you've got to have multiple different revenue streams. A lot of businesses, when you're ready to scale, if you're ready to scale, that is most businesses that I come across only have 1 to 2 revenue streams. Now, the big problem with that is that a lot of your potential clients or your customers are always judging you on price and not on value. So kind of having this trading time for money mindset, which is so old school. So how do you get around this? What's the solution for expanding your revenue stream? So one of the things that and I want to share a quick story with you actually. Back around 20 years ago when I was working in the personal training space. Okay. Now, personal training is again, you're based on per hour, right? What can you do per hour for me? Okay. What can you achieve in my results? Okay. But the problem with that is that you're only going to get a limited amount of commitment from your clients. And the big challenge with that is that means that they will probably become very disappointed because they won't take responsibility for their own results. So one of the things that I did when I went into the personal training space is I wanted to move away from the whole trading time for money and to move into packages. So one of the things that I did is I created some different packages. Now, my outcome for my clients was to improve their sports performance and reduce their injury. That was the goal. And I had split it into 4 main packages. We had bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So with the platinum, I only had capacity for 4 clients a year, and it would have like a ridiculous amount of value added in there. Whereas the bronze might only be that I see the client maybe once a month or once every fortnight. And it might mean that I'm updating their physical, their training program, for example, and I'm giving them some basic nutrition advice, all right? So it's effectively, how can you package your services into broken down parts depending on the solution, the problem that you're trying to solve for your clients effectively. So that's just one example. You've got things like retainers, if you are a consultant, you've got sponsorships, you've got performance-related fees, you've got affiliates or affiliate programs, you've got partnerships. So these are ways in which you can effectively expand your revenue streams. So if you only got one to two, look at how you can package yourself where you are sitting at the top rather than the bottom, because it's the bottom where there's lots of competition and it's the top where there's lots and lots of room for. Second pitfall to avoid when it comes to scaling a business is going alone. So interestingly enough, I used to believe that it was quicker and easier for me to do everything myself. And it stemmed back from when I was a child, by the way. And what I found myself is what I become quickly overwhelmed. I'm doing things, I tend to move into taking on activities which effectively makes me unhappy because I'm no good at it, right? Or it takes me a lot longer again. So the problem is that your to-do list becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know if you ever find that week on week, when you start fixing certain problems in your business, then that problem tends to become 10 bigger problems further on down the line. So the solution to this is what I found particularly useful is to outsource certain activities and create what we call a stop doing list. So evaluate your whole day and write down all of the tasks and activities that are actually taking up the majority of your day, and think of how you can actually outsource those activities that will help free up your time. And there are so many great websites that you can use to outsource activities, whether it be a virtual assistant or whatever it might be. But don't think about how much is it going to cost you. Think about how much time is it going to save you, because effectively the more time that you free yourself up from, the more then you can then focus on the skills that you enjoy in your business. The third pitfall is limited products and services. One of the things what I come across especially in professional services in particular, is that they might have an accounting practice. And so the one or two products is that you might do VAT returns and you might do tax returns, and that's it. 1 to 2 products to solve your client's problems. But the challenge is that not everyone will be willing to invest. And what do I mean by that is that if I'm a potential client and I discover you, say, on social media, I have a conversation, or I'm looking to solve my problem, whether it be to be, I don't know, HMRC tax compliant. Now, I might not be ready to spend £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 on your big package or your main product or service account. So I might not be ready to make that jump because I might not trust you. I might not feel like we're completely congruent. The reality is that what we've got to do, what I like to do is I like to create gifts. So I like to give away a lot of free things. So for example, it could be a masterclass, it could be a free guide, it could be a webinar, it could be a quiz. Anything of those are gifts, and those gifts help. It's basically one of the first stepping stones to creating longevity and trust. The second part of this is to create what we call product for prospects, which is basically what I call low-hanging fruit. So the purpose of a P4P really is that it needs to be priced at below £1,000. So £997, £497, £297. Don't ask me why it's always a 7 or a 5 at the end. It's just a psychological thing. So it might be that you created a video course, right? And the video course could be like a five-step series for whatever the problem that you're trying to solve for your client, for example. It could be an online course. It could be a membership. So what that does is that product for prospects effectively gives your clients a huge win to the problems that they're trying to solve for, that you're trying to solve for. And it really cements in stone what you can do. Now, in the past, what we've done is we've done a number of things. So, for example, our free product that we did about 3 years ago is we created an online summit. And as part of that, as part of our P4P, we had a online membership, which included things such as a vault of all of the recordings, and that included some of the things that we did in our mastermind. It included one-to-one sessions. So it was basically packaged accordingly that had lots of value. But again, it was a product where effectively I'm giving lots of information or lots of knowledge to help solve their problem, but effectively they're doing the work. So that's the purpose of a P4P. And then you've got what we call high ticket. So that'd be your main products or services. Again, depending on what your industry is, accountancy, recruitment, whatever it might be. And then you've got the last part, which I like to call the after sales. So if you can imagine, for example, if we look at, say, BMW, if I go into a car showroom and buy a BMW, which I have done in the past, one of the things that they love to do is they love to add a service pack, because guess what? My insurance or my warranty on my car will then be invalid if I don't purchase my service pack. Bit of a con, but or they may also offer you, if they know that, for example, you have an interest in golf, they may offer you tickets to, say, Wentworth Golf Club, for example, there on the PGA Tour. So how can you then create a after sale that, again, it continues the relationship? It could be a subscription, for example, further on down the line. So expanding your product offering. Number 4 is relying on referrals. Now, listen, I love referrals. I absolutely love referrals, and I'm sure you guys do. But relying on referrals is an absolute no-go. And what I mean by this is that, referrals are what we call the creme de la creme. So there's nothing better than being recommended by your clients that you work with you, and they recommend you to others. There's nothing better than that. But to rely on that, it's no good. What you've got to do, and what we love to do, is we love to create assets, marketing assets within the business. So one of the things that we're doing right now in the business right now is we're creating a number of marketing assets or marketing tools that, again, will help our clients. And a lot of these are free products. So, for example, last week, actually, we created a new masterclass where people can access a case study that we then walk people through. So you could do that. One of the other things that we did was we took a podcast video or podcast audio. It was one of our most popular on. It was called Creating Clarity in Your Business Strategy. And we effectively turned that into a playbook. So again, that's another great way to create marketing assets. So you've got content marketing, you've got affiliates, you've got partnerships. So again, driving lead generation, having 4 to 5 different lead generation sources is a great way to have a continuous amount of leads coming into the business. Pitfall number 5, know your capacity. Now, this is really interesting because one of the things that I do, one of the conversations that I've had numerously over the last few weeks is, one of my questions is, where are you at in terms of capacity? What percentage are you at capacity? Now, some people might say to me 50%, some people might say to me 80%. Now, the big problem is, now, in any business, you'll have a capacity, all right? You'll know roughly how many clients you can take on per, say, year, okay, before compromising quality over quantity. Now, I have a capacity in my business, and you'll have a capacity. Now, the big problem is that most people will increase capacity too late. So they'll get like beyond 80%, and then they're so swamped by their client demands, and they won't be able to focus on working on the business rather than because they're working in it. And they haven't put things in place that will help create capacity. So the solution, really, one of the things that we do is we look for ways to increase the capacity before it actually happens. And now, one of the ways in which you could increase your capacity is, for example, you could hire somebody else that is identical or in some way, for example, does something similar to what you do. So we call these fee earning people. And again, you're able to then increase your capacity in your business. So look for ways to increase capacity before it actually happens. Number 6 is one of my favorites. Actually, one of the common pitfalls when it comes to scaling a business is that a lot of businesses lack a clear strategy.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, when I say clear strategy, right, especially if you have a team, a small team, or even on yourself, if you don't have your vision, your mission, your why, your purpose, and your goals, if you don't have those within your strategy and it's not updated on a regular basis, then what that's going to do is it's a bit like going on a road trip, but not really kind of not knowing which direction you're going to be going in order to get to your destination, if that makes sense. So one of the things that we love to do in our business is that we use what we call a business blueprint. And within a business blueprint, it basically outlines what challenges we're going to pre-anticipate and how we're going to counteract that. And then what we tend to do is what we need to achieve, what things we need to improve upon, or things we need to fix in the business within the next 30 days. Because generally, before we bring new ideas to the table, okay, what we need to do is we need to deal with the trash or the things that's holding us back. So for example, in the past, in our business, we may have had a toxic employee that we need to deal with. So we need to wean them out. And that's just one example. So thinking about throwing the trash out first before bringing and implementing ideas. Otherwise, what's going to hold you back is that is then going to paralyze your time for action effectively. It's going to paralyze your action points. So that is what I would recommend. Number 7, poor hiring practices. Now, I just wanted to tell you this as well. I have hired way too fast for my liking. I haven't taken the time out in the past, and I've hired because I guess in desperation more than anything else. I hired and I brought in talent when actually their skills and their values was a complete mismatch to what we wanted to achieve as a business. And so again, what that does is when we spend really good quality time and training that person, and say, for example, you have a person with a poor attitude or not the right skills, that's really going to eat into your time. So one of the things that we do in our business is we have created what we call an onboarding document. So for example, you could create a checklist when it comes to recruitment. And rather than kind of looking at someone's CV in terms of their skills, I always hire people over their attitude, over skills, because skills can be taught, attitude cannot. So that's what I like to do. So what I would recommend is creating a checklist, and an onboarding checklist about the things that you need to cover when it comes to you hiring good things. And also, making sure that you can kind of tap into other people in your industry and find out what their best practices when it comes to hiring as well. Number 8, inefficient processes. There's nothing more annoying looking at what you and your team does on a daily basis, and again, what eats into the time. All right. The problem is that there's only so much time in the day. I have the same 24 hours a day than you guys do. And you've got to think to yourself, like, how can me and my team efficiently maximize the time that we have? Because again, you could spend time on doing things that's going to drain your energy, or it's going to increase your energy. Okay? Can you find a process that will make things more easier, that will help streamline practices? So for example, if you're manually sending emails out to 20, 30 people, could you have them part of a CRM system as part of a list and then do it all in one hit? That's just an example of identifying things that's eating into your time, and then identifying and how you can turn those standard operating procedures into a process and find tools and resources to be able to streamline that. Pitfall number 9. And I think this is really important, which is customer neglect, or client neglect, as I'd like to call it. And now, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, but I certainly have, where I remember this was going back a really long time ago, but I really remember it. So I was a client for an accountant. Now, I would have probably only have a conversation with my accountant maybe once a year if you're lucky. He would never call me up. He would never find out if I was doing well. He would never find out if If I needed anything, he would never offer any advice. It would just mean that he would send a letter before my tax return was due, and that was the only contact that I would have. Now, the big challenge with people in professional services is that you're so focused on onboarding new clients. Now, onboarding new clients is 10 times much more, has more energy and takes a lot more effort than it does to look after your existing clients. So there has to be a balance between onboarding new clients and looking after existing clients, because if you can look after your existing clients, you've already built the trust there. All you've got to do is look after them. You've got to nurture them. You've got to find out how you can be of service and add value further to them, because again, they may increase their spend further on down the line. So customer neglect. Don't forget about your clients and your customers, especially your existing ones, all right? And the last one, which I think is probably one of the most important things, which is weak leadership. Now, one of the most common pitfalls when it comes to weak leadership is, again, it can be really hard to let go, especially if you're a business owner and a founder. So by identifying your right-hand man or right-hand woman, as soon as possible, and setting up your team, which effectively fosters accountability and responsibility. But what it does is it helps you as a business owner. It helps you to identify who those leaders are in your business, and then how you can use things such as courses, training, and again, to help nurture and help to improve those leadership skills are going to help bring more ideas to the table, but also it's going to make your life so much more easier. So those are my 10 common pitfalls. So let's just quickly go over that. So the first one was limited revenue streams. I talked about limited revenue streams. Number 2, I talked about going alone. So I use this analogy. Rome wasn't built with one person. It was built with an army of. So think about that, right? Basketball teams, football teams, rugby teams, whatever it might be. I like to use sport as an analogy. It isn't a one-man show. Not a one-star footballer or player makes winning count. It's the team that needs to help. There needs to be this glue together. Number 3, limited products and services. Talked about how you can expand your products and services. I talked about gifts, P4P, high ticket, and also after sales. Number 4, relying on referrals. And I talked about creating marketing assets and how to go about doing that. And again, what that does also is it increases the valuation in your company when you start to create those assets. Number 5, knowing your capacity. Everyone has a capacity, quality over quantity, all right? So you need to work out as a business owner, based on the results or the transformation that you want to create for your clients, how many clients or customers can you take on per year that will effectively fill your capacity? Now, it's going to be different for different industries. So I'll use a financial advisor as an example. You sit down with a client, you find out what portfolio you're going to be managing, okay? And then how long is that process going to take, right? From start to finish, right? Last week, I was actually hosting a mastermind. And one of the things I got my clients to do is to work out the customer journey and reverse engineer it. So what can you do in terms of working out what the capacity is? How many clients can you actually take on before you're absolutely overwhelmed? What can you do to increase that capacity? Number 6, lack of clear strategy. So I talked a little bit about the business blueprint. Number 7, poor hiring practices and what you can do to prevent that from happening. Number 8, inefficient processes. So talking a lot about how you can streamline your business much more efficiently to save time. Number 9, customer neglect. So how do you balance new customers with your current clients, and how do you nurture and add value more? And the last one is weak leadership. And I talked a little bit about how to foster really good culture. I talked a little bit about training, leadership courses, and things like that. So those are my 10 common pitfalls to avoid when scaling your business. I've also given you some solutions and some stories as well. So listen, guys, hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, feel free to leave a little review over on Apple or Spotify. And feel free to reach out to me. And I'd love to hear if you have any other pitfalls that you want to add to my list. Anyway, from me, Adam Strong, hope you're well. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Rinse knows that greatness takes time, but so does laundry. So Rinse will take your laundry and hand deliver it to your door expertly cleaned. And you can take the time pursuing your passions. Time once spent sorting and waiting, folding and queuing, now spent challenging and innovating and pushing your way to greatness. So pick up the Irish flute or those calligraphy pens or that daunting beef Wellington recipe card and leave the laundry to us. Rinse. It's time to be great.